I'm Chuck Staton, and we're Impractically Connected.
This is insane!
What's up, bud?
What's up?
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, man. So I wanted to do this outside on my deck because it's so sunny and nice out, but the wind was just too much.
Oh, no.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was
It's
all
pretty windy out
excited.
here.
I just bought a desk that's basically made for like putting over your bed, like you wheel it over yourself and then it goes up and down. And I had it set up outside with my chair. I'm like, this is gonna be fucking awesome. And then the wind was just killing me.
Oh, no.
Yeah, man.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
I know.
It's been pretty windy out here, too. Some
Dusk.
stuff is flown away. It's pretty bad.
It's crazy. So I'm here to plug Narragansett Beer's Funbearable Dumber Break, which is a live show that my podcast Funbearable is doing in East Providence, Rhode Island, at the Comedy Connection on Sunday, June 1st. If you're in the New England area, come on out. Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island. It's going to be a great time. It's a great club. The Comedy Connection is awesome. And Funbearable, we do very bizarre live shows that are more than just a podcast. There's like improv segments and pranks, and it's a really strange thing, and we have a lot of fun doing it. So go to funbearablepod.com, and that'll have a link for tickets, and hope to see everybody there.
All right. So I guess we could start off with from the beginning with TSD. How did you come across the podcast, and how did you get involved with it?
It's funny. So I bought a house in 2000, at the very end of 2011, and in 2012 I started painting. And if you've ever had to like buy a new house and sand the walls and paint and fill in holes, you know that it's just like hours. You're just going there for hours a day. And I think I had heard Walt and Brian on Kevin Smith's podcast, Smodcast. And when I think I was listening to that, and one of them plugged Tell 'em Steve Dave, or Kevin plugged Tell 'em Steve Dave. So I was like, let me check out this podcast. And that became the podcast I listened to while I was painting my house. And I just listened. I loved it. I fell in love with it. I loved all their like big game episodes. It was so much fun. It was so fun. And I really got into it, and they kind of expanded what I thought podcasting could be, you know? And so after a couple of years, they were going to do a live show in the summer of 2016, and it was in May, and they never do live shows. Walt hates to do live shows. So I reached out and I said, hey, are you guys filming this? Because people were like flying in from England for it. So they basically blew me off. I wrote to Walt. I didn't know any of the guys. I had no connection. Walt was like, oh, thanks, we'll keep it in mind, or something. He blew me off. And then they were doing another live show in July. I don't know what the deal was, but they did 2 live shows that summer, and the second one was at Gramercy Theater. And I reached out again, blown off again. And so I decided that I would reach out to the Impractical Jokers manager. I did some research, and I found their manager's name and his contact information. So I wrote to him, and I told him, I'm like, hey, they never do live shows. They should do something. They should film it and release it somehow. And the day beforehand, he responded to me, and he's like, yeah, come down, do a 3-camera shoot. And I was like, shit. I'm by myself. I have no time to plan. I'm in Rhode Island. This is in New York. So I had to give my buddy Brad and my girlfriend at the time a crash course in like using video cameras. And it was funny because I went to Gramercy for the first time. I'd never been there. Now I've filmed there a million times, but I set it up, wide shot, close, 3 cameras. And then we went in Facebook Messenger, and I kind of directed them through Facebook, where they would be showing me their framing, and I would have them move it. And I filmed that live show. And a while later, I took the footage because we were waiting for Declan to mix the audio. He's the guy who mixes our audio. And we put it out as a Blu-ray, and it sold out immediately. Walt had a couple other video ideas at the time. So he's like, hey, would you want to help me with these as well? Because they were really happy with the live show. And I said, sure. So I helped him with a couple more. It was Elephants in the Room on Blu-ray and TESD TV on Blu-ray. Those were the 3 Blu-rays we released. And so we were working together and filming some stuff. I was commuting to Jersey from Rhode Island. And then Comic Book Men was canceled. So Walt and the guys wanted to start a Patreon. So Walt said, "Would you want to come work on this Patreon project with us?" I'd never even heard of Patreon. And I was like, "Sure." And we were kind of just figuring things out at first. We would film like small sketches. We filmed this football thing with Sunday Jeff where he was training to become a host of a podcast. And I think we were just figuring it out as we were going at first. But then we fell into the model that we do now, which is like a rotating schedule of different shows. And I direct like Tales from Behind the Fake Counter about the history of comic book men. I direct Rock and Roll All Night and Podcast Every Day, which is a Kiss discography podcast. I direct a new one called Brian Nichelle's Time Capsule, which hasn't started yet, but it's gonna be awesome. I host a show on it now called the TESD Tapes too. We've done like 4 episodes, and I'm hosting another one. We already filmed the first episode; it hasn't come out. I'm hosting a second show, but yeah. So over the course of like 2018 to 2025, we just kind of came up with all these concepts and kept rolling. And yeah, eventually it's like I just was there and I became friends with everybody. Became friends with Ming and Brian and Quinn and Nichelle, Rupert, everybody, and Frank Five, and yeah, it's been like amazing. I eventually moved here because I was working on that, as well as a podcast called Tuesdays with Stories with Mark Norman and Joe List, and I was commuting for both, and I was just staying in a hotel. So eventually, I was like, I got to get an apartment here, and so I got an apartment here a few years ago, and all the Tell 'em Steve Dave work has kind of continued and rolled forward, and I've worked with a lot of the guys now in different capacities too, which is really cool. I get to meet a lot of great creative people.
Sounds awesome though, honestly.
Yeah.
It sounds like a dream come true.
It's a very cool thing, especially because I came up, doing independent projects, and I fell in love with like the world of Kevin Smith, and that's obviously what led me here. And I've worked with Kevin a bunch from this too. Like now I have, worked on a bunch of stuff with him in Smod Castle and different things, and but really finding Tell 'em Steve Dave really felt like it spoke to me and what I want to do. And it's really cool that I was able to get pulled in so much. I'm really thankful to Walt and to everybody involved for kind of making me part of that. I think the most recent Christmas episode we did, I think there were 17 of us on the Christmas episode, and it was just like amazing because it was all of us hanging out. Like Troy everyone is awesome. I'm literally friends with all the people that are on mic on the show and behind the scenes guys like Rupert, Declan, Victor, Alex, all those people. Like they're all great guys that I love.
Yeah, I've talked to Alex a little bit. He seems like a nice guy.
Oh, he's great. I want to slap him in the face too. I love punching him, jumping on his back, biting his head. He's the best guy.
So, what's your favorite Patreon series that you've made?
Okay, so for Tell 'em Steve Dave, well, I think overall it's probably Tales from Behind the Fake Counter, because Walt told me that he wanted me to direct that show because he knew I was trying to move up in the industry of like film and television. And since Brian Nichelle was the host and also the director, and he's really high up in the TV industry, Walt wanted me to work with him so I could move up, which is really kind of Walt to think of me. Do you see the sun shining and how it's like just taking me over? I'm just getting pulled into heaven. I'm gonna adjust a little bit. Hold on. I didn't realize it would move so much so quickly. That's nuts. All right. All right. There we go. So that was really cool of Walt, but what it did for me was it made me feel like I have to make that show super high quality and super pro. So I feel like with all the stuff I directed, that was the one where I really took a step and I was like, all right, I'm going to make a great intro. I'm going to make great lower thirds and packaging, and I'm going to have all the transitions and cuts and overlays and the way we use the show feel basically like in between a podcast and a Talking Heads documentary, So that's probably my favorite consistent show, but we've done a bunch of documentaries. So I think the best thing that I've been able to make on the Tell 'em Steve Day Patreon is probably the Last Day at the Stash documentary. It's like an hour and 10 minutes or something. And it's just a documentary about the final days of the 35 Broad Street stash. There's actually a really interesting story behind it too. So,
Love to hear it.
so they were closing the store to move to 65 Broad Street up the street. And I kept telling Walt we should film the last day. And he kept being like, we'll see, we'll see. And finally, he's like, all right, let's do it. So I went down and I went to film it. And Walt goes, hey, I'm going to pretend that this is really emotional for me and that this is a huge deal just because it'll be better for the video. And I'm like, okay. And so he did. And the way he talked was really emotional. He says a lot of really touching things. We filmed it to be very like tug on the heartstrings. Like at the beginning, he says, the last day, the last episode of the Mary Tyler Moore Show, she walks out of the radio station and looks back one last time and turns off the lights and closes the door. And that's how the whole show ends. And he's like, that's how I feel today. And at the end of the video, he walks towards the door and I do this huge montage, this wicked emotional montage about everybody, comic book men, tell him Steve Dave, everybody involved. And then he looks back in the store and he turns off the light and he closes the door. And so I edit it, whatever, I send it over to him. And I'm like, yeah, I think it came out really good. We made it really feel like it was a big deal, which is really cool. And he wrote back and he goes, that was really hard to watch. And I'm like, how come? And he goes, I didn't tell you the truth. That was my actual last day. And so all the stuff he was saying was true. It wasn't an exaggeration. And I was like, ugh, because I pulled on the heartstrings so hard. I made this very sad, dramatic, and bittersweet look back on the store. And it was all true, but I didn't know that at the time. So I think that that's probably the thing I'm most proud of there. And then there was another series called Making History, and it was like the history of the Making Hay episodes. And it was a 3-part documentary that I also took incredibly seriously, and I'm really happy with that. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy with all the stuff. I'm really happy with the stuff I've gotten to do because I think if I was working on industry projects all this time, there'd be a lot more pressure and a lot less creative freedom. But Walt really lets me do what I want and trusts me to come up with ideas and film ideas and just the way that I do things. Like all the intros for all my stuff they're really produced, and I try to make them feel like they could be on television. And I don't even tell them what I'm going to do beforehand. We'll film a new series, and I'll just go, all right, I'm going to go film a thing, and he just trusts me to do it, which is a huge gift for someone who's like actually working and actually getting paid to do this, but they have complete control of what they want to do, it's really awesome that Walt does that for me.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
How has that what was I gonna say? How has that inspired like your own podcast? Like being able to take that and go into your own.
Honestly, it's getting in there and really seeing what they do really changed my perception of what a podcast is. And I think what I've learned from them is like they created so are you a big Tom Steve Dave guy?
Yeah.
Oh, dude. So they've created so many different things. It's like the core of the podcast is Walt, Brian, and Q talking, but then it's like you have the Baron von Flanagan stuff, which flirts with horror and comedy. Then you have characters like Dollar Shave from the commercials, and you have the big game episodes like the Bicentennial Battle and all these different things, big Christmas episodes, big Halloween. And what they did was they created so many different versions of their podcast and different aspects of it that now they can just cycle through them and it never feels stale because you don't get Baron von Flanagan except for like once a year. So when he comes back, you're like, oh shit. And then then you bring in, Dollar Shave, and it's like, oh shit. And then that keeps happening because they've created such a diverse world just within those people. And that's really something I took to Funbearable. And if you look at the Funbearable feed, it's very, very obvious because we do a segment called Pitch Doctors where we rewrite upcoming sequels to movies. We do a thing called Boy Crimes where people write in about the dumb crimes they've done as kids. And we've purposely been like, let's diversify and do different versions of our show that we can jump into and jump out of. We do a version called The Roar where my co-host Brad Roar fills us in about something because he's very analytical and he's the biggest nerd I ever met in my life and I love him. That was a huge thing to me. And then the other thing I think I took was that Walt constantly plays devil's advocate on the podcast. In my opinion, even stuff that he doesn't believe, he'll take an opinion and he'll present it just to make the conversation interesting. And I took that to Funbearable, but instead of a devil's advocate point of view, I'm just a complete idiot. and I just pump up the stupidity like crazy, where I'm like, I don't understand what I did wrong. And I'll argue my points from the position of a dumb guy so that Ray and Brad can like tear me apart. I just recently told a story in the podcast about how we bought this turkey as a prank and put it in my friend's bathroom for Thanksgiving, but it was made for like slaughter. That's why they were selling it for Thanksgiving. And we're like, we don't want to kill this turkey. So we kept it as a pet. And then it was like getting cold. We didn't know what to do. So we gave it to my friend's dad, who had an alligator living in his basement. And he split the basement in two to have one turkey enclosure and one alligator enclosure. And I'm like, the whole time, Ray is like, are you kidding me? What are you talking about? Like, why would you do this? And I'm like, he has a way with animals. Like, I'm just like playing this character that is just like defending myself, but in such a dumb way. You know what I mean? And I think you can kind of come at a podcast. I can't believe this sun in my face. I can't. You
You're
can come
good.
at a you can come at a podcast where everyone's just themselves, and if you're friends, you might kind of share the same opinions. It's not as interesting if everyone's like, "Hey, did you see this movie? It was good. It was good. It was good." But if you have someone that is a wild card or someone stupid or someone playing devil's advocate, the conversations become so much more fun and they flourish in a different way. And so those two things are things that I definitely took from working with Tell 'em Steve Dave and yeah, and being influenced by Walt and all the people there. They're so creative.
Yeah, that's awesome. What do you think like the most chaotic story of Funbearable is?
So that's interesting. I got a couple. Let me see. So one of them was we were gonna go. So Walt asked Funbearable to be on Game Night, which is a Patreon episode where Tell 'em
Yeah.
Steve Dave goes up against other teams for games, and he asked me to come do it. So whenever the guys come to New York, because they live in Rhode Island, Brad and Ray, but we try to make it like, oh, let's also interview Brian. Let's also have Brian Nichelle on. Let's also have Rupert on, and we film a bunch of things. And I was like, oh, you know, it'd be cool to film a little documentary about us going to New York and doing all this stuff. So I got my GoPro and we're filming it. I go to get in my car to drive to New York. My car's full of all our gear. I'm about to pick up Ray and Brad. Back tire is completely flat. I had a nail in my tire. And like I literally am filming myself about to do it. And I start the car and I'm like, and I'm looking at my tire PSI and it's like 3 on one of them. And I'm like, and I have to get out. I'm on the phone. I'm calling people. I'm like, what should we do? Because we're supposed to be there the next day and we had planned this. And I had to go to get my parents to come to my house, switch all the gear into their car, and we had to leave super late. So we got there super late. We had to get up wicked early. So that was a little stressful. And I'll tell you a really fun one, which is one time we were doing a live show, and this was actually before Funbearable started, but it was me, Brad, and Ray together. We all good?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So Ray, Brad, and I were doing a live show before Funbearable. It was a Christmas comedy show. And we wrote the whole show. We'll kind of do segments. We'll do like a continuing thread. And one of the things was that I think it was that Brad didn't believe in Santa Claus or something like that, the whole show. And at the end, we came up with this idea where we were going to say in front of the audience, if Santa is real, he's going to send his chorus down to sing Christmas carols with us on stage to close the show. And we tried to get this chorus to come and do the show. And they told us they would do it, but then leading up to it, they stopped answering us. So we started the show live, and we're like, the ending that's written, and we know we have 100 people in the audience, and we're like, the ending that's written is that this chorus has to come out on stage at the end. We don't know what we're going to do if they don't come. But we're doing the show, and as the show is going on, we don't know if they're going to show up. So backstage, we're coming up with like solutions in between segments. We're like, what if we do this? What if we do this? And we came up with a solution we didn't like, which was basically that the crowd is Santa's chorus and they're going to sing with us. But I'm like, it doesn't feel like it's great. It's just like, all right, we're stuck with this if they don't show up. So we're doing it. 5 minutes left in the show. I'm looking at the green room and the chorus comes in and gives me a thumbs up. And we were like, shit. And so we do the whole thing and they come out and we ended the show with them doing Christmas carols on stage. And it was awesome. But it was so goddamn stressful the entire time. Like doing our lines and doing our bits and trying to be funny while knowing we the end of the show might fall apart because these they're not going to show up. So it was really fun. It was really funny, but that was very, very stressful and crazy.
No, yeah, it does sound a little stressful.
For
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah. It was a lot.
No, I can only imagine the amount of stress that came with that, especially with it being all last minute.
Yes, exactly. It was crazy.
I did have a question to follow up with that. How has it been with the live shows? Like, do you see that the upcoming one is gonna like I guess you could say be better than the first one or
Yeah, I think so. I mean, with any group of people who are comedians, I think you kind of find your way. You know what I mean? Like, Brad and I started doing stand up like 8 years ago. And I kind of quickly realized like I liked writing punchlines and stuff, but I don't like being the only person on stage. I think it's always funnier when you have two people with two different personalities that can bounce off each other. Like, even as something as simple as like, do you like to go camping? And you have one guy on stage and he kind of is like, I hate camping, blah, blah, blah. Or I love camping. And that's it. He goes down that hole. But if there's two people and one guy's like, I hate camping, the other one's like, I love camping, then you start arguing and you come at each other. To me, that's just so more rich in terms of where you can go with comedy. I think the best comedy always has to do with people working together. I mean, I love stand up. I I really appreciate stand up, but I just do feel that I really appreciate and prefer to do comedy that has to do with multiple voices, bringing multiple viewpoints to the table. So that was the thing we had to learn by doing. And then we started the live shows. And at first, they were more like a podcast. Then we kind of changed it to be like sketches. Then they were really scripted. And then Ray became involved. And Ray kind of pushed us to be more like, well, we'll come up with bits. And then we'll just have to improv in between to get to those bits, which I think is better and makes them feel more organic to the room. And it makes people feel like it's more real than the scripted stuff. So I think the shows are always evolving and we're always finding new directions. And yeah, I do think that they get better as they go for sure. And I'm really excited for the upcoming summer show because we have a lot of very stupid stuff planned.
how has improv I guess you could say built off of your foundation with wanting to get involved with like media production, camera work and all that?
So it's interesting. So I never took any improv classes or anything. I think that my style and sense of comedy came from writing. Like we did from 2004 to 2013 or 14 or maybe 15. We were writing sketch videos for my band. I was in a band for punk band for 15 years, and we decided early on we were going to do comedy videos to promote ourselves because it was now I think if a band did it, it'd be like, oh, that's cool, whatever, because social media and YouTube are so big. But in 2004, we didn't have social media like we do now, and even YouTube wasn't that big. So we were like, let's be a band that does comedy videos too, and we really took that seriously. And we would write and write and write and write, and film, and I would direct the stuff, I would edit the stuff, and I would be in it. And I think I had my own little crash course of trying to figure out what I think is better as we go. And that kind of always went from writing. But then in 2009, we started the podcast, and that's where I think me and Brad, just started to develop our relationship and the dynamics there. And I was able to push more into this character version of me that's very obscene and very dumb and all this kind of stuff for him to hate. You know what I mean? And for him to play off of. And so for me, it was mostly just like scripted stuff, directing comedy, and doing a little bit of performance. Then the podcast brought in the element of like, I don't know if I'd call it fully improv, but it's basically like these comedy conversations that are lively and funny enough that people want to listen to it. And I do feel like I got really lucky doing Funbearable because Ray and Brad are like two of the funniest guys I know. And getting in that room and being able to bring my dumb stuff to the table and have them pick it apart and come at me and for them to bring their funny stuff to the table and all that stuff. I feel like we did come to a place where I'm really happy with the dynamics of what we do and how good we are at working together. And I think it took a long time to get there,
That's awesome.
as it should,
Yeah.
you know?
Speaking of your background and stuff, what made you get into the film and comedy industry?
So basically, when I was like 12, I started filming videos with my cousins and my friends. And we would do these dumb videos where like it was just like comedy, like action things. Like I remember one of our first ones was called The Day Everyone Fought. And we would just like we would make, I would go to throw my cousin out the window and then we'd have a dummy falling out the window. And I think it was just like I loved Ace Ventura and Billy Madison and Naked Gun 33 and a Third was a big one, and all these like comedies. And I was like, oh, let's make some stuff. And so when I was 12, I just started, and it just rolled forward and forward and forward. And then when I was about to go to college, when I was like 17, they were like, what do you want to do? And I said, the only thing I'm interested in is film. That's the only thing. So I went to school for film, and then the band started at the same time, exact same time, and we were like, let's do comedy videos. And so it just kind of pulled me even more into it. It's almost like I never really thought about it. It was just a thing that I started doing as a little kid and just never stopped. And I always wanted to be creative. I love writing music. I love performing music. I love doing podcasts. I love directing film stuff. I love writing comedy. So I think maybe I always wanted to be creative in these different ways, and the one that felt most organic to me was filmed comedy, writing, directing, and filming comedy. And so it just I don't know. I started as such a young kid that it's almost hard to remember like why did I start doing this? I just had this draw to it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, Speaking of all like the directing and stuff, how's working with Jokers been?
So it's been fun. I mean, it's funny because I've been working with Quinn on the podcast for a long time, and then a couple of years ago, uh, I heard him say on Tell Him Steve Dave, I really wish Chuck was my creative partner. And I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, just talk to me. Like, I didn't even have his phone number at the time. And I'm like, can you tell me instead of everybody else? Because I'd like to move forward with that. That'd be great. And we started talking, and I was pulled into directing a sizzle reel. For a while, the Jokers were doing a couple new sizzle reels for new shows, and Quinn asked me to direct one. And so I had to like run a set with him and with a bunch of people from Jokers. So I hired the audio tech Kian, I hired a gaffer, a lighting guy, I hired my friend Jessica Fricker, who is she works in production on the show. All those people from Jokers, kind of like a bunch of people came over and worked on the sizzle reel. And then Sal and Casey Jost asked me to be a camera operator on another sizzle reel. And I met more people from Jokers, including Sam Weinstein, who's a camera op. And then I met some of the writers, Joe Ambergio, John Zaluga, and we worked on all these little projects going forward. So it's like and Casey Jost, I became friends with him, and we've hung out a bunch of times, and he's a great dude. And so by the time I got to get hired, I'm like, I know so many people on production that I've already worked with for like a while. So it was cool because I've been wanting to work on Jokers for a long time. I got the call in February that I got hired. And then my first day, I was like, I know 10 of these people already. Like walking in, I already knew them. So I felt really comfortable. But it's been really cool to be pulled up into an industry project like that. Like everything I do is very independent and DIY. Like I filmed CBS hired me to film the first episode of Drew Barrymore's podcast because she wasn't sure if she wanted to do one, and she saw me do Mike Birbiglia's podcast, and she had requested that I do hers. And so that was cool. And then Brian Nichelle pulled me in to film a sizzle reel in Ohio about little people wrestling. And I filmed that, and we sold it to Discovery Channel, and it was a show last year called
No
Big Little
way.
Brawlers. It was a whole show. Yeah.
Yo.
Yeah. So I had these little flirtations with actual industry work through like my own DIY stuff. It was weird. But I really want to get some actual industry work under my belt for my resume. And I'm really happy to be involved in something like Jokers because it's comedy. It's super established. It's very alternative. I love the concept of the prank being on the performer, which is very new. They're really the people that are kind of pioneered that. And we do a ton of that on Funbearable. Like when we made a fake business of my buddy Brad having hot dogs, and we sent
Oh
advertisements
yeah.
out all around the country. And so like the idea of the like you go on stage and the prank is on someone else on stage and the audience gets to laugh with the people pulling the prank is really unique and a new concept, I think. And Jokers are like the people that have really pushed that forward. So it's really cool to be in this space where it's exactly the type of stuff that I want to do, and I'm super appreciative that they did hire me.
Yeah, honestly, when I saw that, I was like, "Yo, no way! This is crazy!" Like,
I
it's
know,
like
I know.
it's like insane to see that
Yeah,
happen.
congrats.
Oh, thank you very
Congrats.
much. Yeah, it's funny too because like me and Brian Nichelle, we meet up all the time. Brian Nichelle is like straight up my mentor, and he's
Mhm.
the nicest dude ever. Um, we started a little band together. We're jamming and stuff. It's going to be in an upcoming Tell 'em Steve Dave
Okay.
video. Are you going to the Curator weekend in New Jersey? Do you know about it?
I do know about it. I would love to go, but I just can't make it out there.
No,
It's
I hear
just,
you. Where are you
yeah.
located?
I'm in California. I'm in Los Angeles.
That's tough. That's a big trip.
Yeah.
So like they're showing and they're showing something in Smodcastle. They're screening a Tell 'em Steve Dave project that's never been screened. And hey, if you want to see me and Brian Nichelle playing music together in a band, you might catch it on that video. But so Brian Nichelle's my mentor, and we meet up all the time. And he's like, you're where it's at for the future. All the future is going to be is like self-produced indie projects of people finding an audience and being able to monetize that and do their own big creative things with no studios or production companies tell them they can't do the things they want to do. They get complete creative control, and that's the future of media. He's like, and you have so much experience already that's going to be really positive for you. And I'm kind of countering that and being like, yeah, but what's tough about this is that if I do try to get some sort of job on an industry situation, on an industry, show or movie or whatever, I'm going to be like, so I work on Tell 'em Steve Dave. It's two of the guys from Comic Book Man and one of the guys. We have a Patreon, but it's not just podcast. It's like it's so hard to explain that to people that I really want to get stuff on my resume that's like camera operator on Impractical Jokers. Like, that kind of stuff that's so simple where if I go to a studio and I say, "Hey, I want to direct a pilot, like and I have an idea for a pilot, will you give us money to make it?" Having an industry credit like that, I think goes a long way. So it's a really important step for me to take. I think, especially right now, I'm really really thankful that they hired me.
Yeah, no. I did have a question. What are you allowed to talk about the sizzle reels anyway, or is
Yeah,
it
I think so. Yeah.
okay?
So yeah,
Yeah.
you want to know about them?
Yeah, I'd love to know about them.
For sure.
So I'm not sure exactly the reason they filmed a bunch right then, because what they did, and Quinn actually invited me, Ray, and Brad to come and pitch a show to him for Warner Brothers. So we came up with a show that I'm really proud of, and I'm really hoping that we get to film a sizzle reel in the summer or the fall this year because I'm very, very proud of this idea, and I think it'd be great. But yeah, so Quinn asked me to direct a sizzle reel about his firehouse and all the people that are at his firehouse. He loves them. They're a great group of guys. That was a huge part of his life. It continues to be a big part of his life. And so we got a lot of money to do this thing, and I had to really like make like a call sheet and a crew. I had like a 10-person crew that I was running that day. Like I was directing it. And it was great. We had a great time. I hired Ray as a camera operator. I hired Brad as a PA. I hired other Rupert was on there too. I think as a camera operator, my buddy Raj. So it was a really great experience to film that and for Quinn to give me that opportunity because it was a real interesting thing to get a real big budget and be able to say, all right, use this to hire all these people and get this crew together. It's all up to you. And I had to do everything. I had to find everyone myself. So Jessica Fricker did help a little bit with that too, and which is great. So that was about his firehouse. And then the other one that we were filming was, it was about this Staten Island realtor that I was shooting with Sal and Casey that had gone kind of viral on TikTok. That was just this really funny guy with this he's an older guy. He has a Staten Island accent. And he was just showing houses on TikTok for his real estate company. He'd be like, brand new house, 2 garages. And it was really funny. And he would have this very funny manner of speaking. And so they had an idea to possibly film his real estate company and all the people there as characters and do a reality show about him and his real estate company. So we went in, and I was a camera operator, and we had a great time filming this thing with him. And he was the nicest guy. His employees were nice. It was a great day. And it was really fun to work on both those sizzles with both those guys.
It sounds like a lot of fun, honestly.
It was great.
I'm trying to see. Let's see. Do you think those scissor rolls are gonna go anywhere? Or...
I don't really know what the deal is. I kind of suspect at the time they were like True TV has been changing, and True TV is where Joker started. Now they're on TBS, and Warner Brothers had a big shakeup over the past few years. Who owns both networks? I think it's possible that they were like Warner Brothers was like Impractical Jokers may end soon, and these guys are so successful. Let's see if they can come up with other shows for if Impractical Jokers goes off the air, and Impractical Jokers didn't go off the air. I think that was like 3 years ago or two. I don't know. And it's continued. So I'm going to guess, and this is not confirmed, I'm going to guess that they put those on the back burner because Joker's continued and it's already such a big, successful machine. So I think that that's kind of what happened with those.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. There was a pitch that I did actually get to ask Q about on Twitter.
Nice.
It was about where he goes to different cities and illustrates weirder facts about them. I don't know if you know anything about that one.
Oh, yeah. I saw the promo for that.
Yeah, I
It was,
I was able to ask him about him, and he was like, just sadly it didn't get picked up. So I was like,
yeah.
wonder if you knew anything.
No, I didn't even know about that one. I don't know who produced it. I don't know. I think he might have shot it in LA. I'm not sure, but yeah, it's funny. I don't even know where I saw it, but there was that clip of him like running with a green screen and there's all this stuff. I don't know what that was. I've never talked to him about it.
Yeah, I was like trying to figure it out, and luckily he responded to it. So I was like, oh yeah, there you go. I get to know a little bit more about that one.
No, that's cool, man. I like that.
Yeah.
Guerrilla journalism.
Fern, do you have any follow-up?
Yeah. Are there any like other TV shows besides the one you were talking about that's like any like plans of filming or pitches or anything like that?
So we do have the idea that Bray and Brad came up with me, and I think it's so cool. I think it's so unique. I'd love to film it. There's actually a group that comes out of Canada named Nirvana, the band, the show. And it's a really interesting comedy. It's really smart. It's really interesting and really unique. And they came up with a really funny balance of hidden camera stuff and scripted stuff. I love them. And it was a really small show on Vice Canada. And then Vice Canada closed. But the director, who's one of the stars, then directed the movie Blackberry that came out a couple years ago with Glenn Howard in from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia and Jay Baruchel. And it did really well. So he got signed as a director to like CAA or some agency. And they asked him what he wanted to make. And he made a movie follow-up to that TV show. So it's called Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie.
Okay.
And then that screened at South by Southwest recently, and it was bought by Neon Pictures, who produced
really?
the Best Picture winner this year, Anora. So that's going to get a wide release. And that group of people, Nirvana, the band, the show, and all the people around it, that's like, I would love to work with them. Like, that would be like the top thing that I would want to do, especially in a really creative aspect like writing and coming up with that stuff. And then besides that, I work with these two comics, Mark Normand and Joe List, and they're super funny. I love those guys. When I went to pitch shows to Warner Brothers for Q, one of the shows I pitched was a documentary series about Mark Normand, because he's kind of a lunatic where he just like, he'll be like, oh, I missed my flight. And then I tried to get in a car and drive to Ohio, but I left my wallet at home. And he's just like it's insane how he just left for the UK for 2 weeks. And after we recorded in his basement, the podcast, and Joe and him went upstairs. I had to leave. And Joe told me afterwards that he hadn't told his wife, who they have a new baby, that he's leaving for England for 2 weeks.
Oh,
And he was like, and Joe was like, "Hey, so it's crazy. Mark's leaving for 2 weeks tomorrow." And she's like, "What's that?" he constantly does stuff like that. And one of the things is, after working with Tell 'em Steve Dave for a few years on Patreon, I went over to Mark and Joe, who do a podcast called Tuesdays with Stories, and I was like, "You guys need to revamp your Patreon." And so I became like a Patreon consultant, and I helped them, and I came up with all these ideas. And the main idea that helped us build it, because we tripled the Patreon in a year and a half, was a documentary series called Hot Gay Sets. Because they always say gay, they always say I'm gay, I'm hungover, I'm gay, and they're doing sets. They're out doing their comedy sets. So I was like, let's go film you doing your sets and make this a high quality documentary project. I'm like, it has to be good enough that it could be on like Netflix. So I came up with that show, and I direct and edit it and shoot it. And it really helped us build the Patreon. People really loved it. So I was trying to take a version of that to put it on like a streamer or a TV network or something. And I still think that that really has legs, and that if we ever were able to talk to someone and do like a sizzle for it or whatever, I think it would be really, really solid. I think it's these comedians making so much money doing stuff independently. And whether or not you like each individual thing or not, but it's like Kill Tony is gigantic, Rogan is gigantic, Matt and Shane's Secret Podcast is gigantic, Two Bears One Cave. There's all these comedians just doing everything themselves, and I'm shocked that streamers and networks are not trying to court them and get them to do stuff for them, because the numbers would be gigantic. I mean, Shane Gillis does film the show Tires himself and sells it to Netflix, so they do that. But I wish I could pitch basically a version of Hot Gay Sets to a streamer or a network and use Mark and Joe, because I think it would be huge. It would be cheap to produce, and you'd get those numbers from the comedy scene that is so gigantic right now, and you'd be able to bring them over. But it's tough. It's like, yeah. So I think that would be great. I think that'd be good. I probably would have to change the name from Hot Gay Sets to something else.
probably.
You know what name I came up with? Because Mark is a workaholic, and he's also messing up all the time. And the name I came up with was Mark Norman Needs Work.
I feel like that would work.
Yeah.
It's pretty good, right? It's pretty good.
Pretty
The dual
good.
meaning, right? I know. And I have a sizzle, because we already shot so much documentary stuff that I have him doing all this dumb stuff. And yeah. And plus, it's just exciting. The idea of kind of being around these touring comedians. People are so obsessed with that right now. Comedy is so big that it's shocking to me that we can't get that made into a real show.
How has like the comedy scene impacted like your work and all that, involving stuff you get involved with?
I think it's really helpful for people in my position, where I'm really close to New York City, and I know all these comedians now, and I think a lot of them are very comfortable with me shooting, because one of the things I realized, like, I'm on like the subreddit for like people who are like filmmakers and that work in the industry, and people are like, I can't get jobs. I can't get editing jobs. I used to have them all the time. I used to have to turn down jobs. Now there's no work. I have to like get a job, at Uber or whatever, because they were based on industry stuff, and the industry is kind of crumbling and there's a lot less jobs. But if you work on these independent comedy podcasts, you just have consistent work 52 weeks a year. Like I've been working for Tell 'em Steve Dave since 2018, and we've never stopped making stuff. I've worked with Tuesdays for 4 years. We've never stopped making stuff. And I have time to go work on other projects. So I think it's really given like a backbone of consistent income to independent filmmakers who maybe they're trying to do bigger stuff and more creative stuff than just podcasts. But with people like Tell 'em Steve Dave and Tuesdays, you do get to do more creative stuff. I do get to do documentary stuff with them and really highly produced podcast ideas. And on top of that, it's like, it just is income coming in to support you while you are looking for other projects. If Tuesdays with Stories takes up, 8 to 10 hours of my week, that leaves me 30 other hours to go work on other projects, whether they're passion projects or not. So I think it's a really helpful time, and the boom of the comedy scene can really support you as a filmmaker if you make the right connections and you come up with ideas that make sense and you do a good job communicating those to the comedians, and you are able to put it out there and have them make money for them. They'll keep employing you and you just keep doing good work and you'll have this backbone of passive income.
No, yeah. What's your advice for future people that are trying to get into that? Because I'm currently a film major and I'm getting into that, so I'm like really curious, like what your advice would be.
Yeah, so I think my advice for filmmakers, comedians, musicians, whatever, sometimes you feel like, oh man, like I can't really do much. I'm just me. I don't have a fan base. No one's going to pay me to do anything. Just make stuff. Just make stuff, and you make a thing and you say, oh man, you know what could have been better? The audio. And you make another thing where the audio is better. You go, you know what could be better? The lighting. You make another thing. Like, you know what? The editing could be tighter. You make another thing. And you do that until you're really happy with what you've made. Then you reach out to someone who's like doing a little bit better. And you say, hey man, can I come work with you on something? Here's what I've made. And they might, and you keep, and you, someone says no, and you reach out to another person, you reach out to another person, then you do a good job there. Then you reach out to someone else that's a little bit higher up, and you go, hey man, I work with this person, and I did this. How about working with you? And you keep doing that until they say yes. And I think that even though you're making stuff at first where you're not getting paid and you don't feel like you're even really making it for anyone because you're not famous or whatever, I think it really opens the doors. Like, you know, when Brad and I were doing the podcast, it was just us in a room with microphones, and we had a couple people listen. Then we were doing live shows, and we shot the live shows from 3 angles and recorded the audio. And that's what I took to pitch myself to Tell 'em Steve Dave.
Mhm.
Even though for us, we were just like kind of filming it for us. We didn't even have a video podcast. We were just filming it to have. But then I was able to edit it and I put it there, and they're like, all right. And that got me my first real consistent job with filming. And it's like with there, it's like, all right, well, we're just doing it for the Patreon, just the people here. But then Mark and Joe, they want to make their Patreon bigger. So I bring that work to them. Then I go to them and I get kind of a higher position and get paid more. I throw it to Kevin Smith. He's impressed with it. I get to work with him. Mike Birbiglia, he's impressed with it. And from that, I meet Drew Barrymore. And from this, and then I meet Quinn. I meet Brian Nichelle through this stuff. And they pull me into these higher. So you kind of make these very small steps. And I think that that is really what gets you where you want to go. You just got to make stuff no matter what, and use that to move up and feel. And it's okay to move up this much, and then move up this much, and this and this and this, and then after however many years, you're high. You know, you're this high, and you just kind of keep scraping by like a little bug. That's how I feel about myself. I'm a little cockroach climbing up a ladder.
I think that's pretty much everything that we have question-wise for today.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's been insane
Yeah.
to get to talk to you and all that. So
Great, man. I appreciate the invite.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah,
Yeah,
thank
of
you so
course.
much.
Thank you guys both. That was a really fun talk.
Yeah, I'm glad. I was a little
Great.
nervous, but
No,
got
it was
through
great.
it.
No, it was
Yeah,
awesome. Do you want me to plug my stuff, like my Instagram and all that stuff?
yeah, go ahead.
All right. So if you want to check me out and check out the podcast, we're at Funbearable Pod on every social media network: Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube. We do a new episode every single Wednesday, video and audio. We've had a lot of Tell 'em Steve Dave people on. Brian Johnson, Walt Flanagan a bunch of times. Get him Steve Dave, Brian Nichelle, Brian Rupert, Jimmy the Hair Guy. It's a big, you know, I like to think that we're very much in the world of Tell 'em Steve Dave. The way I put it is always like our podcast is Funbearable, like that's our town, and it's right next door to TESD town. Um, but yeah, so we have a lot of fun, and we do a lot of really strange things, a lot of really creative ideas that I'm very proud of, a lot of writing for our podcast. And we're doing our live show Sunday, June 1st at the Comedy Connection in East Providence, Rhode Island, Narragansett Beers, Funbearable Summer Break. And it's going to be a great time. So come out if you're in New England. And then my personal stuff is at Discount Chuck on Twitter and Instagram. And yeah, you can see all my Funbearable and Tell 'em Steve Dave and Tuesdays and Jokers and whatever the hell else I'm doing.